I think our conversion is not complete until we have really absorbed the truth of those words that Christ, in the name of God the Father and so on, is not condemning, but is saving or healing. And it's very difficult, surprisingly enough, for us to accept that interpretation of events and interpretation of the meaning of the Christ event, because we want to hijack it, to hijack the story of Christ and to hijack his teaching and turn it into something that supports and reinforces our own ideas about God as judge, jury, and executioner. And there's something quite deep in the human psyche. You can't blame it all on the church. Something quite deep in the human psyche that expects and even demands punishment for our failures, for our mistakes, and all the times we've fallen short, as we even if we are the only ones to know it. And so it's this revelation of a completely different kind of divine nature than the one that human beings have imagined for so long and institutionalized for so long. And it's such a profoundly different understanding of God that we can only really, we have to be turned upside down and inside out in so many ways. So many of our values and assumptions and so many of the things we think we know, and we know very little, but pretty well everything we think we know has to be turned inside out and upside down if we are to get the point. In other words, we have to enter into paradox. And that isn't, the opportunities to enter into paradox are frequent and many, because life is constantly presenting us with things that trip us up, that confuse us. Why should this happen? This doesn't make any sense. This is unjust, this is unfair, and so on and so on. So, and yet, in each of these kind of experiences of life, there is a wisdom being taught by life itself that has the capacity to do exactly that, to change us, to change the way we see. And if we change at that level, if we change that idea of God, which most people today nominally reject, but is still pretty tenacious, still hangs on in people's imagination, and it comes to the surface whenever some tragic event happens and somebody gets, does something terrible, and the press and the media and half the politicians jump on the bandwagon and demand the worst possible kind of death or suffering or punishment for that person. So the opportunities to learn are many, but it's a hard lesson always to really learn and to look upon that fiery serpent, to look upon our own capacity for poisonous, to self-poison ourselves, and to poison the world around us, to look upon that, to see that. One of the things we unfortunately have to do when we meditate. It's not the main purpose of meditation, but meditation will take us through a confrontation with our own shadow and our own darkness. And this is the paradox. If we can just get a hold of this idea of paradox, learning the lesson when the teaching moments of life come is much easier, rather than confronting it or just avoiding it, denying it in the usual ways that we do. T.S. Eliot said, "The way up and the way down are one and the same." He drew that from the mystical tradition, which is perfectly at home with paradox. In fact, plays with paradox and uses the conundrums of paradox rather than the dogma of religious certainties to communicate what we need to know in order to learn. And at the heart of today's readings is presented to us by Margaret in that description of Philippians, where God emptied, the divine being emptied himself, herself, emptied. What does it mean to be? Have you ever felt really empty? And it's quite frightening to be really empty, to have nothing, to be unfulfilled in any way. So imagine choosing that emptiness, and in order, in the divine mystery, to bring about this great living paradox of the Incarnation, which is a very difficult lesson to swallow. And this is the invitation we have, though, to reverse our usual attempt, which is not to empty ourselves, but to fulfill ourselves, forgetting the power of paradox to reveal to us what the Buddhists will repeat many times in their teachings. All the unhappiness in the world comes about through people seeking their own happiness. And all the happiness in the world comes about through people seeking the happiness of others. And it's that other-centeredness which is really the meaning of emptiness, not destruction. It's simply turning ourselves inside out and upside down to face others. And if we're lucky, they may be facing us. They may be doing the same thing, at least. And if it coincides, we're very lucky. But even if it doesn't coincide, we don't stop doing it. Because it has to be without conditions. So, but I think this, the readings today and the image today of that serpent, the fiery serpent that brings healing after it has poisoned us, It connects the two mysteries of God and humanity. The deepest polarities of reality for us, beyond our rational capacities. The mysteries of contraction and expansion. The mysteries of descent and ascent. And even the mysteries of life and death. So it's the connection and the interweaving of these opposites that is the way being offered to us by the example. We can't just download this knowledge from any source. We have to discover it with the help of others and with the help of many wells of wisdom, but we have to find it within ourselves and discover that it is happening already within ourselves.